Hello, hello, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Anissa Avon, and I'm here with our guest expert, Lyndsey Fry. Hello, Lyndsey.
Hi,
So glad to have you today.
so excited to be here. Thank you.
So we're going to get started pretty quick. Our topic today, shifting your perspective during a crisis, kind of important with Olympian Lyndsey Fry. This is our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit, and I want to say thank you to our sponsors. So big thank you to the Whitmarsh Consulting Group, David Whitmarsh, the CEO, and his team of ultra talented multi-channel marketing specialists have truly come through to help us make this summit a possibility. So thank you, my friends over there at the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. I want to say thank you to Insperity HR that makes a difference. I reached out to Insperity, asked them if they thought they wouldn't mind throwing in and helping us make this Leading in a Crisis Summit a success. And they said, sure, what do you need? And I said, well, how about providing something free, a way for our audience that matters right now? And they came back and said, well, how about a free HR financial analysis report and confidential debrief? So very briefly, just want to say this is kind of a big deal. It's complimentary. They know that not everyone that takes advantage of this HR report is a good fit to be one of their clients. They said that didn't matter. That wasn't the point. They know that HR budgets have completely been backburnered out the window, tossed in the waste bin, because what we prepared for at the beginning of this year is no longer valid from this point forward, and potentially, if not definitely, into 2021. So if you are in HR and you might benefit from that complimentary advice consultation, seeing what other organizations are doing and comparing your budget with what other successful organizations are doing, don't hesitate to take advantage of that. You can learn more at turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. And our final sponsors that I want to mention is actually our internal team of strategists. We have a pretty cool data-driven strategic planning process. It's really oriented around growth and high growth organizations that want to create executive team alignment using data and using research around what successful organizations do as they grow. Well, my team has taken that, turned it upside down, implemented pandemic and crisis related data and strategies, and put together a package that isn't exactly free, but it's the next best thing. It's name your own price, because it's our way of saying, what do our clients need? What we're all going to need a new strategy to come out of this difficult time. So if we can be of service, it would be my honor. Give me a call about that strategic planning and alignment program at 281-469-4244. Little bit about me. My name, again, is Anissa Avon. I'm a management consultant and the CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. We provide enterprise learning and development solutions. And what I'm pretty proud of right now is the 50 plus experts like Lyndsey Fry, who have so generously and graciously joined together to share our strategies, their strategies for leading, navigating, managing our emotions, supporting our employees, crisis management, etc. during this difficult time. And so Lyndsey, I want to tell you a little bit about Lyndsey. Lyndsey, Olympic medalist. She's a marketing strategist with the Arizona Coyotes. Am I going to say this right? Arizona Kachina's president, business owner, and motivational speaker. Lyndsey received her BA in History of Science from Harvard University in 2015. And it was during that time at Harvard that she took a leave of absence for a year to go play for the 2014 Olympic ice hockey team. She won the silver medal. She's going to tell us, I hope, a little bit about that experience. And she's also going to share with us how she's developed her own business and her own motivational speaking, and more specifically, why this is the opportunity to seize the opportunity to be resilient, to dig deep and find out what's really inside of us, to find purpose and meaning. So I'm really grateful that you're here, Lyndsey. Tell us a little bit about you. What did I miss? What are we going to talk about today?
No, that all sounds good. Do you want me to start sharing my screen and I'll kind of
Yeah,
go
you bet.
through a bit? Awesome.
You bet.
All right. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so like Anissa said, my name is Lyndsey Fry. I am actually from the state of Arizona, which surprises a lot of people when they hear that I'm an Olympic ice hockey player. And I'm really proud of the fact that I'm actually the first ice hockey player from the state of Arizona, male or female, to compete in an Olympic Games. And I'm also the first winter Olympian from Arizona to earn a medal. So I'm very proud of that, and always knew I wanted to come back and make a difference here in my community. And I'm fortunate. I'm still pretty young, so I'm very fortunate to have the opportunities I've had thus far to be a leader in my community, and I love it very much. So I'll just kind of go through my story a little bit, because a lot of you are probably wondering, how the heck did this little girl from Chandler, Arizona become a hockey player? It's funny, what for me, I actually fell in love with the Mighty Ducks movies when I was 4 years old. My dad was commuting back and forth to Southern California, so I got to go to some real Ducks games, which was really cool. And they got me these like plastic skates that would strap onto your shoes, and I would just skate up and down the driveway for hours. I absolutely loved it. I started as a roller hockey player actually when I was 5 years old, and when I was six, the Arizona Coyotes, at the time they were the Phoenix Coyotes, the NHL team, had just come to town, and they started building some rinks around Arizona. So they built one in Chandler, in my hometown, and this was one of my very first ice hockey pictures from my Chandler Junior Polar Bears team. My mom was very set on making sure everyone knew I was a girl. She put that big old bow on my head, and I've almost forgiven her for it. But I played with all the boys. Around this time when I first started playing, there were really less than 30 girls in the state of Arizona between the ages of 6 and 19 playing hockey. So I was one of the few, and I loved it. It didn't bother me at all to play with the boys. I had an absolute blast with it, and I grew up playing with them from the time I was about 6 or 7 all the way up through the time I got into high school. So when I was in high school, I knew by this point, I wanted to be an elite hockey player. I was one of the better players on my boys' team. But unfortunately, we started to understand the college hockey process and recognize that if I wanted to play in college someday and hopefully make an Olympic team, I needed to find, one, an option where I could play with the girls, but two, an option where I was going to get recruited for college, because these college hockey coaches certainly weren't going to find me playing on a boys team in Chandler, Arizona. So I was really lucky. Another one of my friends from Arizona, who was also a very talented hockey player, she and I and our parents all decided that the best option for us would be to go and play for an organization in Colorado called the Colorado Select. And we would literally, I cannot thank my parents enough for all the sacrifice and the commitment, but we literally would get on a plane twice a month, fly to either Colorado for practices or fly to wherever else in the country we were playing to play our games. And it was a lot of travel, and we did that all throughout high school. It got to the point where my junior year, my public school told me they weren't going to be able to handle it anymore, so I had to switch to online school. So this whole online learning situation and all these online meetings is very familiar for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I switched to online school, and was very fortunate that it paid off, and I was able to get recruited to go play at Harvard University. And it's interesting because, a lot of people think of Harvard, and of course they think of the academics, but they also are one of the oldest women's hockey programs in the country. And it's been a very, very successful program for a long time. And for me, while the Ivy League schools don't do Division I scholarships, they don't do athletic scholarships, which is something a lot of people don't realize. I saw the opportunity to go play for a phenomenal hockey team and get an amazing education as the ultimate reward for all the time I had put into my sport. I really believe that while maybe I wouldn't have been able to get there on grades alone if I had put all that time and energy that I put into practice into my academics. Then I felt like I would have gotten there. So it was kind of this amazing reward, amazing opportunity. Had a wonderful time at Harvard. It was a little rocky at first, but I won't go into that. I definitely struggled with the college transition, but overall had a great time there. And like Anissa said, after my junior year, I was selected to play on Team USA for the Olympic team. And at the end, I mean, you guys can ask me any questions you want related to that. I could go down a million different rabbit holes related to the Olympics. But it was an extremely challenging time, physically, emotionally, mentally. It's something that you have to be 100% all in. And it was a really challenging experience, but ultimately to be able to wear that jersey in Sochi, Russia with my entire family there was just one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And I think more importantly, what it's been able to give me, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but for me, I knew it was so much more about representing my country. It was about representing my state and representing little girls in my state. And it's really become a driving factor for how I lead and why I do the things I do. So I would be very impressed if any of you watched this game, but it was a heartbreaker. We were winning 2-0 with 2 minutes left in the game. And Canada ended up coming back and tying it, and we went into overtime and we ended up losing. And it's always tough because in order to win a silver medal at the Olympics, you have to lose a game. So it's a really heartbreaking experience, as you can see by all of our faces. But like I said, I mean, my family was there, and in this picture, I'm actually looking up at them. I knew exactly where they were sitting. And it was like out of a movie. I mean, I just had all these flashbacks going through my head of everybody who had helped me get to that point, from the time I was a little girl in Chandler to my time in Colorado to my time at Harvard. And I realized in that moment, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the one to make an impact in someone else's life so that they could go on and achieve their dreams. And that's really been, you know, the driving force for everything I do today. So like Anissa said, I own my own business, Lyndsey Fry Hockey. It's interesting because when I was getting ready to graduate from Harvard, I wanted nothing to do with hockey as a career. I saw it as like this waste of my education. All my Harvard friends were going and looking at these big finance jobs or looking to go to med school or law school. And I just saw getting involved in hockey as a cop-out. And it was interesting because my parents helped me set up my LLC, and, you know, they were my early investors, got me some of the equipment I needed. And originally I was going to run a camp in Arizona, run a camp in Colorado for a year, maybe 2, and then call it good. Like, okay, I gave back to my communities and I'm good. And it was interesting because I started to really fall in love with the back end of running the business. And I ended up realizing, you know, if there are girls playing in Arizona, maybe there are girls playing in other non-traditional hockey markets. And I literally started Googling the most random states I could think of. I was like, Alabama girls hockey, Georgia girls hockey, New Mexico girls hockey. And I just compiled this list of contacts and ended up running, I think, 10 or 11 camps in my first year. So that picture in the upper left is actually from a group in Portland, Oregon, of all places. So that's really my niche, is going to these non-traditional states where there are girls playing, but nobody's really going and giving them attention. And it's attention that I think they deserve. So I've had a wonderful time doing that. And then I also have been working for the Arizona Coyotes for the last 2 years. And Anissa and I were chatting about it earlier, and we can talk about this later, but I did get furloughed today. This morning I found out. So I'm kind of working through that. And it was funny. I told her, you know, I was very much considering not doing this today, but then I was like, you know what? No, this is what everybody needs to hear, is how do you continue to lead during these challenging times? So yeah, I've been working for the team for the last 2 years. I've been doing a lot of stuff with them, with some girls hockey stuff, longer than that as just a contracted employee. But within my role at the Coyotes, which is, like Anissa said, doing a lot of marketing strategy, I also am the president of our girls hockey association called the Arizona Kachinas that has, this season, it looks like we're going to have almost 200 girls as part of that. And the crazy thing is that's only like 25% of the girls who are now playing here in Arizona. So there's a lot of opportunity to grow, and it's definitely come a long way since the 30 girls that were playing when I was a kid. So right now, I mean, this is part of the female leadership for our Kachinas group. So right now, for me, what's really relevant for this topic as far as changing your perspective, looking for opportunity, leading during a crisis, it is like more relevant today than it's been this entire COVID-19 experience for me, because now I'm trying to figure out, there's still 200 girls who are looking to me to provide them this experience. And if I'm furloughed, it's figuring out, okay, well, if I'm not allowed to work, how do I continue to provide them this experience? So a lot of this is going to be very relevant, and I think create a really great conversation.
For sure.
So moving into kind of I didn't want to go too heavy on like the lecture or the talk part of it. But I do absolutely love this exercise, and some of you have probably seen it before. And for those of you who haven't, you probably were looking at the title of this talk going like, what is she talking about? Like, opportunity is nowhere? That sounds depressing. But it's really all about shifting your perspective, because some of you are looking at this and reading opportunity is nowhere. But I look at this and I see opportunity is now here. And I think this is something that no matter how challenging times get, no matter what situations we get put in as leaders, or, you know, even if you're a coordinator at some of the bottom levels, regardless of where you are in an organization or what it is that you do, I genuinely believe that there are a lot of opportunities in front of us to make a difference and to come out of COVID-19 in a better place than we started. So as far as, you know, I'll speak in the business realm because that's where I'm the most comfortable, but the way I see it is kind of this scale effect as far as the impact that COVID-19 has had on business. There are a lot of organizations, I would say probably more than not, who are in this category of slow, where business has completely slowed down because they can't execute on their business models. We are a professional ice hockey team. This is a perfect example of one of these businesses. We have really no revenue streams at all. Even at our youth hockey level, where we normally would run camps in the summer, the ice rinks have all been closed here locally. So this has been really where we've sat. There are a few, I wouldn't say a ton, but there are a few where business has been, I would imagine, fairly straightforward. Online education groups that this is their normal. I don't think there's as many of those types of businesses, but they are out there. And then there's this group like the Amazons of the world, the Zoom, holy cow, Zoom is raking it in right now. Whatever company, you know, has Clorox wipes, like all these companies that now their business is soaring. Yeah. So there's kind of these three different categories. And I think it's important to recognize that regardless of where your organization or you personally fall, if you're, you know, self-employed or whatever it is, there are opportunities for everyone. So I'll focus more on the slow-moving businesses and the fast-moving businesses and just some of the things that I've been thinking a lot about. So we'll start with the slower businesses where things have really just come to a halt. I think we all know that whether it's you as an individual looking for professional development and coming on to calls like this, or if it's you leading a team of people, when things get crazy and they get busy, we all have those like, oh, I wish I had the time to get this done. I wish I had the time to make this process more smooth. I wish I had the time to adjust these policies to better fit our organization or our team. And so and I think this is something that a lot of people are taking advantage of, but really try to focus on those projects that you always wish you had time for. I think I've been just really encouraging a lot of people on my team that I've been leading for the Kachinas, and just say, look, everything that you feel like you never get to work on, let's bring that to life and figure out how we can use this time and not let it escape us. And, we don't want to be kicking ourselves in 2 months scrambling, being like, why didn't we work on that when we had all the time in the world? I think the other thing is, I like to think about this equation. It's E plus R equals O. And that stands for event plus response equals outcome. And we can't necessarily control the outcomes, but we certainly can't influence them. And the only piece of this equation that we can actually control, of course, is our response. And so I think it's really important that no matter what events you're dealing with as a result of COVID, I want you to continue to challenge your responses. This is something that we've been trying to do, because I think when you start to challenge the way that you look at things, you challenge your perspective, you look at alternative ways to respond that maybe you haven't responded like ever before. And that's where I think we're going to see innovation, because we're going to start responding in different ways that are going to lead to a different outcome than we've ever experienced. So I think that businesses that have slowed down should really start doing that. And the last thing is, I put in here, avoid being too good to think of yourself as the cab industry. And, when I was in business school at Arizona State, they always brought up the example of Uber and Lyft completely disrupting the cab industry and the cab industry not responding quickly enough. I think the reality is that we can't let ourselves slip into this mindset that, everybody's dealing with COVID, and as soon as it's over, we're going to go back to normal and our business model is going to work exactly the way it's worked in the past. Our team culture is going to be exactly the way it was before we had all these furloughs. There's going to be a lot that's different. And, as everybody knows, we've been talking a lot about the new normal. And so what I think is really important is, don't get complacent thinking that you are like thinking like the cab industry. Don't get complacent thinking that your model is so good and it's worked for so long that as soon as this is over, everything's going to go back to the way it was. I genuinely don't think that's the case. And I think it's really important for us to check our egos at the door a little bit as businesses, as leaders, and be able to say, what, things may be different. So how are we going to adjust? So shifting over to businesses that are moving really quickly, I think this is a great opportunity. I mean, you are in a position, if you are one of these businesses, I think, to just aggregate a ton of knowledge very quickly. That's going to be something that whatever industry you're in, as we shift into new normal, there are going to be a lot of organizations who have been spending this time trying to innovate, trying to stay above water, and they're going to need answers when we come out of this. And so if you are an organization that you're fortunate enough to continue business as usual and really learn a lot about, how customers are thinking, how your employees are thinking, how, what new normal is really going to look like based on some of the trends that you're seeing, that's going to be something that, you're going to be able to really gain a lot of trust from your industry, and they're going to be looking to you to share the knowledge that you learn. And I think, this is purely a prediction, but I really think, you're going to have some businesses that aren't going to pay attention to this stuff closely enough. And in 2 or 3 years, they're going to need your knowledge. And I think there's an opportunity for some consulting partnerships down the road. And then I think for the fast industries or the fast-paced industries right now, it's just so important to recognize that you are one of the lucky ones. And, all those companies, I think, know that, and we're seeing it. And we just have to continue to provide whatever services we can and whatever value we can for the goodwill of people right now. I mean, we need each other more than ever, whether that's individuals or within companies or just businesses in general. And I think by doing so and just continuing to have a lot of corporate goodwill and doing good things for people. It's going to lead to long-term brand loyalty, which when we pull out of this, I think the companies who do this the best are the ones who are ultimately going to see the most success down the road. So I like to think of, and I think everybody understands this for the most part, I see perspective as, or shifting perspective as a complete domino effect. When one person really buys in and you get another person to buy in, and now you are creating this effect where more and more people in your organization or on your team are buying into shifting their perspectives, it can really create a powerful thing. And one of the things I always talk about is, you know, I obviously don't know what everybody's role is who's on this call and watching, but I think about leadership in two ways. If you're on a team, there are title leaders and there are support leaders. And title leaders those are your CEOs, those are your VPs, those are, you know, on a hockey team, those are your captains and your coaches. And your title leaders are important because, you know, obviously you need that one person to help bring everyone together, make decisions. And I think your title leaders can really start the domino effect. If they shift their perspective, they start leading their team in a way that gets them to start shifting their perspective, there can be some really positive change. But then there are these things called support leaders. And that's, in my opinion, a choice for everybody else. For everyone else who maybe doesn't have the title of CEO, VP, manager, like whatever it is, wherever you fall in the spectrum, I believe that everyone can be a leader. And I think it's really important for us to continue, no matter where we are, to be support leaders and support the idea that we can shift our perspective for the better. And the more and more people that do that, the more we're going to see this domino effect, and the more that perspective is going to change as an organization to create buy-in. And I think the last thing I would say, as far as, you know, if you are a title leader, I would really encourage you, as you're shifting the way that you're looking at things, you're trying to innovate. While, mind you, I understand many of you are also just trying to keep businesses afloat. But as you're trying to innovate in and amongst all of that, people are much more likely to buy in, as I think we're all seeing. They're a lot more likely to buy in and rally behind something when the directive isn't, let's just stay afloat. If you can change, even if it's just changing your messaging to, we're going to innovate in a way that's going to help us survive this and come out of this stronger, that sends a much different message to people than our only objective is to stay in business. So I think there's a really good opportunity for leaders to continue to shift the message, shift the perspective, and that ultimately, in my opinion and in my experience, is going to help people continue to buy in. Oops, let me get my button here, sorry. And then the last thing, I mean, I think, like we talked about earlier, I think regardless of what business you're in, whether things have slowed down, whether they've picked up, I see this as such a wonderful opportunity for everyone to build their brand and, frankly, to tarnish their brand if they don't do it right. We're seeing it in a lot of different companies. They're doing really, really wonderful work trying to give back to the community, help people out. And I think those are the ones who, when this is all said and done, those are the brands people are going to want to buy into. And I think it's really important to, as you're trying to figure out, well, how do we continue to build our brand when we're just trying to stay alive? And I think it really comes back to your why. You know, it would be easy for me right now. And like, this is something that, like I said, is very, very fresh. It would be easy for me right now to just say, all right, well, I'm furloughed, so the girls better figure it out. And if the whole program falls apart, then I'm going to have to put that on the Arizona Coyotes. But that's not my why. My why is that every opportunity I've ever had in my life has come through the sport of hockey, and that's why I'm involved in the girls program, and I want to be able to give those experiences to them. So that's not an option for me when I think about the brand of the Kachinas, when I think about the brand of the Coyotes, and frankly, when I think about my personal brand as a leader. So I think whatever your organization is or does, whatever services or products you sell, continue to really dive deep during this time of crisis into why is it that we do what we do? And then from there, okay, how do we take that why and genuinely give more than we take right now? And some people don't have a lot to give. You know, not everybody can be donating things left and right to people in need. Some people are really just trying to ensure that their employees can feed their families at the end of the day. And so I think it's really important when you understand your why and you are very genuine about what you're trying to do, get creative with it. Think what services can you provide that really don't cost dollars and cents. They just maybe cost a little bit of time or a little bit of extra effort. And I think we're seeing this a lot, but I would just really encourage you during this time. It's so difficult, especially if you're struggling, to not want to just put your hands out and ask for help. But I really believe that, you know, if you give 10 times, someone's going to start giving back to you at some point, and it's really going to help not only with your brand, but I think also with your business and both the short term and the long term. So that's kind of just my structured talk, and I'm super excited to get into Q&A and talk more about, you know, everything that's going on right now. But to recap everything, I'm not going to read this to you guys can all read, but I think just continue to remember, even when it gets tough and you feel like hanging your head and just throwing in the towel, opportunity is now here. There are opportunities left and right. We just have to have our eyes open and be willing to look for them. So with that, I'll whatever.
Fantastic. And I have a lot of questions, as my children tell me I have too many questions.
You want me real quick? So I'll stop sharing my screen and then.
Okay, perfect. So my first question has to do with the E plus R equals O. I can share a little bit with you that I learned that equation actually when I was 22.
Yep.
And it changed my life because until that moment, I had never imagined that I'm 100% responsible for the outcome. I'd always had that perspective of this happened to me. I don't like it. I better fight. Right. And so that particular equation, the event plus the response equals the outcome, changed my world. And even in this short time that we've spent with you, it's clearly embedded in who you are. Even from, okay, I've just been furloughed. What you shared with us wasn't what, you know, normal furloughed folks shared, you know, which is, oh dear, how do I pay my bills? How am I gonna? No, it was this thought for how do I shift so that I'm still who I am supporting these girls. My question goes to, how did you integrate that throughout your life to have that be such a solid foundation of who you are and what you stand for? And, you know, specifically, you know, as an athlete, you had to also have moments where events happen, injuries happen, you know, pain happen, and you shifted out of that. Can you share a little bit about how you built that muscle, E plus R equals O, as who you are?
Man, how much time do we have? Yeah, so I will be honest. I would say that it really sunk in for me closer to the age you were when it sunk in for you. I was not that kid. I was very fortunate my whole childhood. I had extremely supportive parents. But school and hockey, the two things that mattered to me, both came pretty naturally to me. I was always a good student. Like, you know, I always turned in my work. I worked hard, but I was never the kid who had to like go to study hall and like put in the extra effort. And it's kind of the same thing with hockey. So when I got to college, I'm thinking like, I am this stud from the Southwest. I'm going to tear it up. I'm going to be a first line player as soon as I get there. I'm going to crush it in school. And it was like the complete opposite. And I did not understand E plus R equals O because I was used to things coming easily to me. I was used to my parents bailing me out. And I was used to being able to make excuses to get what I wanted. And so I think one of, you know, the most important things that ever happened to me was having my coach at Harvard. And the way that she coached was very, I call it hard hat mentality. She treated us all as equals. It didn't matter if you were a freshman, a senior, a starting player, someone who sat on the bench. Like, when we showed up at practice, she didn't care who you were. You put your hard hat on and you went to work. And that was something that I was not used to. So she definitely kind of helped me start to understand that, like, there are no excuses. Like, I am accountable for my response to whatever happens. And I had a really rough freshman year. When I got to college, I had a really hard time adjusting to not only school, but also the hockey aspect. And just as like things were starting to get a little better, my best friend who I played with in Colorado passed away in a car accident 2 days before Christmas. And I was 18 years old at the time. And, obviously I was devastated. The rest of my freshman year was just kind of a wash. And my sophomore year, I kind of got, on track a little bit, but I still, I was in a relationship, then I got out of a relationship. I was very distracted. I was still trying to figure out, how do I use Liz's memory as fuel rather than like anger and frustration and confusion and all the other emotions that I couldn't control. And it wasn't until the end of my sophomore year, which, mind you, like, is less than 2 years out from the 2014 Olympics. And my Harvard coach was projected to be the Olympic coach at that time. And she sat me down and she goes, "Lyndsey, do you want this?" And I was like, I mean, yeah, of course I want this. Like, everybody wants this. And she's like, "No, do you want this?" I thought about it for a second and I go, "Coach, do you even think I have a chance?" And she's like, she was pretty blunt. She was like, "Well, first 3 lines, probably not, but that 4th line's open for the taking." And for me, I think that's when E plus R equals O really sunk in for me. I was probably 20 at the time, maybe 19. And that's when I recognized that I was in control. I couldn't necessarily control the outcome, but I had the ability to control everything in my power to influence the outcome that I wanted. And I just knew at that moment, like, I literally had the Olympic coach telling me I had a chance. And I knew that if I didn't give it everything that I could, then I would regret it forever. So that was for me when it really, really stuck. And it's something that I think has helped, like you said, build the foundation for everything I do now.
Wow, that's just a great story. Thank you. It leads me to, and please, folks, don't let me hog Lyndsey. Y'all ask questions too, because I will.
There's been a few popping.
Where do you draw your knowledge from? Are there, resources you would recommend, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I love reading. I think one of the best books I've ever read, which is, very reflected in this talk, was Start With Why, by Simon Sinek, which I'm sure a lot of business leaders have read. But what's interesting about that one, and basically for those of you who haven't seen it, you can get the gist. There's a TED Talk that's like 10 minutes long where you can get the gist of the whole book. But the whole idea is, a lot of people make the mistake in business of trying to tell people what they do, and then they tell people how they do it, and then they tell people why they do it, and it comes off very ingenuine and salesy. And he's like, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that for me, I tried to read the book once before I was working for the Arizona Coyotes, and I couldn't get into it. And it was because I realized later, it was because I had such a strong foundation of my why that, like, it wasn't really resonating with me. But once I got into a company where, there are a lot of different people who have a lot of different whys, which is very natural. And I think one of the biggest challenges in leadership is aligning everyone's why. I read that book in like 3 days because I finally understood what it looked like when a why was maybe a little unclear. So that was a really good one. I'm really into, if you don't like swearing, you're not going to like it. I'm not a huge fan of swearing, but like, it just is what it is. But I've been really into Gary Vaynerchuk lately. He puts a lot of stuff out on all different social media channels, and a lot of stuff about just like patience, accountability, leadership, figuring out, like, kind of to that point, figuring out your why. So I've been really into him. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, like, nothing replaces experience. So I try to do anything I can to put myself in positions and do things like this that continue to stretch me and challenge me and give me experience to build my knowledge.
Perfect. Excellent. That leads me to the other piece of experience. And um, I'm not a formal athlete, but I'm a runner and love running. And my daughter and my son are amateur athletes.
Yeah.
And what I am curious about is there is a point at which any craft, whether it's a sport or mastery in business, there's a certain number of hours. We've heard Michael Jordan 10,000 shots,
Yeah.
right? And 10,000 takes 10,000 acorns for an oak tree. So for you, when you were in that moment with your coach in Harvard, and she was basically open the door for you, well, it's up to you. Do you want this? Because it's a possibility. There had to be that light switch. And what I'm curious about is, what was the plan from there? How did you reposition yourself to actually know, if I haven't been giving my all before now because I've been distracted or whatever, what does my all look like, and how will I measure that to know this is my all?
Yeah, it's a it's a really good question. I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about coaching the mental side of the game and whatever it is because at that point, I mean, I knew for years what to do. I had been going to USA Hockey camps since I was 15 years old, and they talked about the same things. This is, we're a fast twitch muscle sport, so you need to be doing sprints as your conditioning this many times a week. You should be lifting in these ways, doing, Olympic lifts once you're trained how to do it. You should be eating these foods and these amounts. I mean, I knew what to do for years. The problem is I didn't understand the things that were up here. I didn't understand motivation and commitment and growth mindset and, like, focus, awareness, like all the things that really build up your mental toughness and your mental performance. Those were the things I didn't understand. And I think when that moment happened for me, it was really less about, like, building out this super unique plan and more just about, like, really organizing my mind to be able to actually execute on all these things. So, specifically, it looked like, obviously pushing myself in the weight room, pushing myself with conditioning, which is always my biggest weakness. I wouldn't say I, like, no, I should. I would definitely, like, go half speed on things because I just, up till that point, it was like, well, I'm really skilled on the ice, so I just have to get through conditioning. I don't actually have to, like, push myself to my hardest. So I definitely pushed myself harder. I would try to do some extra conditioning just to, like, feel like I was going above and beyond what everybody else was doing. My nutrition completely changed. Again, not necessarily like anything that I didn't already know. It was like I knew that, hey, maybe I shouldn't have 3 cookies after dinner if I want to make an Olympic team. It was just like taking what I knew and actually doing it. So I think that was a lot of it. I became very, very obsessed with the process, which is huge. I was 2 years out from the Olympics, so I couldn't just obsess about the end goal. I had to really dive into the process. So I kind of created some smaller goals along the way. When you're trying to make an Olympic team, you have to, like, get invited to multiple camps along the way. So it was nice. I kind of had these, like, set mini goals and checkpoints to hit. And I just, every single day I wrote, wherever I could, I wrote my favorite quote, which is "constant dripping hollows out a stone," and just reminded me that, I'm doing what I need to do today. It may not make an impact today, but if I do it today, tomorrow, the next day, it's going to put me in a position to get where I want to go long term. And then I also I became very good at managing my time, arguably obsessive, as I'm sure a lot of busy leaders understand, having their calendar booked from the time they wake up till they go to bed. But I'm all about maximizing my time, and that's something I've taken from that experience for sure.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to share with you my takeaway from that little nugget filled beauty. First, what a cool quote. Constant dripping hollows out a stone. Did I catch that right? Brilliant. First of all, just brilliant. Karen wrote, yes, thank you for highlighting the importance of the process. Awesome talk. Thank you, Lyndsey. One of the things that I always like to do when I'm in a learning space is repeat, what was it that I just learned?
Yeah.
And what you just shared, and my takeaway from this is incredibly valuable. It was get busy organizing my mind.
Yeah.
And then you said, execute against what I already know. I think that speaks to many of us. We've read it, even those of us who aren't, haven't had years of personal development, there's still an intuitive knowingness about what we need to do to reach our goals.
And could I chime in on that really quickly?
Please. Yeah.
I think one of the other things that is and again, it goes back to everything I've been talking about, but it's so true. Like, if you are having trouble being consistent with something, like, reevaluate your why. Because if you have a strong enough why, you will always find a way how. And that was like, to me, I didn't have a strong enough why. As soon as my coach told me, like, hey, wake up, you actually have a chance. And I started thinking about like the impact that would actually make in Arizona. That's when I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. So like, really, if you're struggling with whatever it is, like, continue to challenge your why until it's strong enough to where you're gonna find a way how. So sorry to interrupt, but that was.
No, don't ever apologize. That was brilliant. And the other takeaway is just that reevaluate your why and remember your why. I think so often we forget our why. We might have it at the beginning of our, practice process, our dripping process, but somewhere along the way we forget why. Especially when in conditioning, you're now on sit up number 2000 for the week or whatever that number is. And then the other piece is exactly what Karen was saying, the process. Work the process. You also said manage your time, maximize your time. Any last minute words of advice about your mindset through all of that? Because from beginning to end, the formula clearly works. You're a success. You're going to continue being a success. You're sharing with us ways to be successful mentally, physically, in the pursuit of business, etc. And we're going to have these moments of, we'll use the dodgeball, dipping and diving and dodging, right? If not just flatlining, considering the crisis that we're facing right now. So what does someone have to do to maintain their mindset through this?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, and I call it an elite mindset, growth mindset, positive mindset, whatever you want to call it. I think one of the biggest things, especially in times like this, is just to continue to practice gratitude. I mean, constantly practice gratitude, because at the end of the day, I mean, my goodness, how fortunate we are that we have computers or phones and internet to be able to even be on this call having this level of a conversation. There are people very sick. There are people who can't be with their family members who are very sick. So I think just really when you exercise gratitude, it helps you put everything in perspective a little bit. I think certainly continuing to focus on controlling what we can control. Focusing on the fact that this will not last forever, as is the case with everything, this too shall pass. I think, as far as kind of being in a slump, it was interesting. I did a mindset call with a youth hockey association yesterday. And one of them asked me, how do you get out of a slump? And the big thing that I said was just, don't judge yourself too hard. I think a lot of motivated people, a lot of you who are probably watching this and want to get better, you're incredibly motivated, which is wonderful. But be okay feeling, some of the feelings that you're experiencing right now. Be very empathetic to the people that you're working with or working for. And I think just when we take that pressure off of ourselves and just say, okay, I'm feeling a certain way. What can I learn from it? Find a way to let it go, okay? Whether that's doing a refocusing breath, whether that's doing some sort of self affirmation. And then you just have to make the next best decision. And if it happens again, where you have another day where you're not feeling 100% because it's brutal being inside all day long, don't judge yourself. Just keep making the next best decision over and over and over. Control what you can, and do what you can to exercise gratitude and stay positive. It's hard. There are days where it is very hard, and you know, today's been an interesting day for me for sure, but I have to be honest, getting on this call has taken my energy from here to here. So I'm very grateful for all of you and Anissa for the opportunity, because this is wonderful.
Well, this has been incredibly uplifting. Super excited about your motivational career because, my dear, you have the chops. Well,
Thank you.
I want to let folks know, I'm going to show my screen again so they can see, folks can see how to get a hold of you. I also want you to share with folks why, you know, what most of our audience are corporations and HR professionals. When does an organization hire Lyndsey Fry?
Well, I'm not working right now, so
I'm available.
so whenever, you know, reach out. No, I mean, I'm generally fairly flexible, and I try to make anybody who reaches out to me, I'm all about providing value and sharing what I can. So any of you who reach out to me, I promise I'll respond to every single one of you, and we'll figure out something at some point. The other thing too, I mean, these are definitely some of the topics, but I really do believe that the Olympics is just such a unique thing that you can tie it into almost anything in this world. So really anything that you guys want from a topic perspective, I kind of have my core talks, but I definitely customize depending on who I'm talking to, and try to have some fun with it. So whatever you guys want or need, I try to provide value in whatever ways I can. I will say, so Anissa reached out to me last week, and it was like Monday, and she's like, you know, you're going to have a great opportunity to have people interested in, you know, wanting something, you know, to take with them from this experience. And I'm like, man, this is my biggest issue. Like, I don't have anything for anyone to buy. So I literally last Monday set a goal for myself to write a book in a week. And my intention was to have it ready to go for today. And then I learned that editing like actually takes some time. But I do have a 100-page book written talking about my experience and kind of my process and everything. So wow. It'll hopefully be edited by the end of July and out in the fall if anyone's interested. So keep on the lookout for that.
Perfect example of you living within your why and living within your principles. You know, you had 7 days.
It was a couple late nights, but worth it.
Worth it. Well done. Cannot
and thank
wait.
you, because I've been wanting to do this. I've been wanting to write this book, like this specific book, for like 5 years, and just needed a little kick in the butt to do it. So I thank you.
Virtual high five. Well, thank you so much, Lyndsey. Folks, please reach out to Lyndsey. Share her message and this conversation with others. I also want to let you know how you can get a hold of Turnkey. If we may be of support or service, don't hesitate to pick up that the phone and give me a call. That number I answer myself, 281-469-4244. We look forward to being of service. And Lyndsey, thank you. This has been fantastic.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Stay safe and healthy, and everyone stay safe and healthy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.